Good morning and welcome to Sunday Insight. In the week that was, Tiger's ex speaks out, and Tiger has the best round of golf of the year. Packers get off to a hot preseason start, but hey, it's just preseason. Bud Selig gets a statue. Meanwhile, more grim economic news signal a slow recovery at best, and the president was on vacation. The candidates for governor hold their final debate. Politicians of all stripes trade shots. And a Milwaukee alderman rips plans to spend $18 million on a train shed at the downtown Amtrak station, calling it the Garage Mahal. Love that. But we start with a new poll out this morning.
The bottom line, voters are mad as hell. In a July poll conducted by the Wisconsin Policy Research Institute, 70% of voters said they were either angry or frustrated with state government. Numbers for the federal government, even worse. In Milwaukee, only 1% of city residents think Wisconsin state government is doing an excellent job, and only 28% think it is doing a good job. Most dramatic, by a margin of well over 2 to 1, 62% to 27%, a clear majority of Wisconsinites believe the best and the brightest leave Wisconsin to work. And this: 39% of Milwaukeeans say they are at least somewhat likely to leave the state in the next 3 years, double the number the poll found statewide.
Joining me on our panel this morning, Milwaukee County Supervisor Linda Bruin, Mike Nichols of the Wisconsin Policy Research Institute, Michael Holt of the Milwaukee Community Journal, and Milwaukee Journal Sentinel columnist Patrick McAlaren. So let's start with this, Mike. This poll would indicate that voters are not only frustrated with the level of government, but have kind of soured just in general. I mean, this is one of those, mega questions. When you have this many Wisconsinites saying our best and our brightest are moving away, when you have that kind of a percentage in Milwaukee talking about moving, what is it telling you?
Right, and particularly in Milwaukee, this is a unique poll because we polled 2,500 people in June and another 800 people in July, so 3,300 people across the state. And usually when you talk just about the city of Milwaukee, you don't get a big sample. We also have cell phone users as part of this Refocus Wisconsin project, so we really have some insight into what Milwaukeeans are thinking. And what they're thinking, like a lot of other people in the state, but even more so, is that if you're a smart person and you live in Wisconsin, you're probably going to go elsewhere. And that's really disheartening. They're also thinking that just themselves are looking down the road, and a large percentage, almost 40%, almost 4 out of 10 are saying that they're not even planning, or they're somewhat likely to leave within the next 3 years. So there's a lot of instability.
What do they say? I mean, this is a state that's known for its quality of life. A lot of people have lived here. Their families have lived here for a long time. That's kind of the Wisconsin way, is to kind of plant roots here. What's changing?
They have, and it's sad because the quality of life thing is an interesting question. We asked that as well, and only less than 20%, less than 2 out of 10 people in the city of Milwaukee think that we have a higher quality of life in this state than elsewhere, and that's sad, and it's disillusioning. We used to think we were special in this state.
Is that a reflection of attitudes towards government, the economy, what?
It is. It's a reflection, I think, of attitudes towards state government, towards schools in particular in the city of Milwaukee. Again, we polled people across the entire state, but the city of Milwaukee was a big sample, and people are upset with their schools. We can talk about that. Almost 40% think their local schools, and that's MPS, deserve a D or an F. And then there's a lot of frustration and anger with state government. So it's really across the board that people are very disillusioned, and they want some changes.
I wanted to ask you, one of the striking things about this survey was that between June and July, because you did 2 different surveys, there seemed to be a souring of the mood. The people became more frustrated, more convinced the state's in its wrong direction. When you talk to voters, are you picking up that same thing, that in fact the mood is souring?
Yes. Yes, and I think for a couple different reasons, both local and national. I think there was an expectation that the economy would have recovered more than it has, and I think people were willing to give the economy a year to get better, and it hasn't gotten better as much as they thought. So that's a big deal. They see that jobs are still leaving and not as many growing to take their place, but also even just the local rains and how that has really devastated people's, housing stock, and they're wondering about their insurance and will this pattern of weather continue. So I think they're getting battered on different fronts, economically, with their own homes in the storms, as well as politically, because look at all the really horrific political...
Either you have the economy going down, you have kind of a mini little Katrina type thing here where stuff doesn't work.
Right, and to me it's like a summer of discontent, and I think you will find that this will continue until the economy gets better and until local governments, including state government, starts actually coming up with solutions rather than always just fighting each other.
Patrick McAlaren.
The numbers are shocking. The fact of the dissatisfaction shouldn't be. We've known for years, for instance, that Wisconsin per capita incomes are below average. Now, take a look at that. Our self-image of Wisconsin is that we're fairly prosperous, but the numbers say otherwise. And it's been that way for a long while. We know that economically our state is fairly stagnant. Population-wise, it is as well. The simple fact that the state has been coasting for decades would lead you to expect this sort of thing.
Okay, Michael Holt.
Well, you know, even though he didn't break down the survey results by race, I would suggest that they're probably similar among African Americans. We've been saying for years
we
that
do have some breakdowns on race. I can share it with you later.
Okay. But we've been saying for years that there's a black brain drain, that most of the black college students leave this city and this state as quick as they get their degrees. And we have to also take into consideration Milwaukee was judged to be the worst place in the United States for black people based upon 7 negative social indicators. So I mean, there's a lot of discontent in the black community as well. I think the fact that we have so many poor folks, they can't go anywhere. I would be interested to see where all of the people would be going if they left Milwaukee.
And what's so odd about this is if you really look at some of what the community has to offer, for the size of community we have one of the most extensive parks and cultural systems. We have a lot of arts groups. I mean, there's some wonderful things going on here that would normally mitigate that, but it's not this now.
These are the kind of numbers that you expect from kind of a dying Rust Belt area that we don't, up until now, have not thought about ourselves that way. Now, obviously, there's political consequences that when people think that the state's on the wrong track, it's bad for the incumbent political party, it's bad for incumbents. But one step beyond that, reading through some of the numbers, there's also an opportunity here that the public seems to be very open to the idea of some pretty dramatic reforms.
Well, exactly, and it is a summer of discontent, but it's more than that. As Patrick says, this is a long trend where we used to have a positive self-image, and we do not anymore. We have an inferiority complex. And there's really a disconnect between the people that we're talking to and polling and government. The people want change, and they want it in a variety of ways. They want change in everything from pension. They want, in many instances, some education reform.
What pension changes?
Well, specifically on pension, about 70%, and this is across the state as a whole, but even more so, Milwaukee would like to see public employees contribute to their own pensions. That's an
issue that Scott Walker's been raising.
Yes, it is an issue that Scott Walker has been raising, and frankly, we didn't get into politics at all, just issues, but people are supportive of that. So that's just one, for instance. But there is substantial support for a variety of reforms, some tax reform, and there's support for, Michael will find this very interesting, but some changes in the way that schools are formed and funded and operated.
Okay, you polled on charter schools, on choice schools?
We did. And a majority of individuals, and this is just City of Milwaukee, but we have statewide as well, are in favor of charter schools. There's a high degree of support for choice. That question was asked in a couple different ways. People can find all the polling at our refocuswisconsin.org website. And there's also other questions that were asked about support for changes in how teachers are paid and for accountability in terms of exams that students should take before they graduate or move on to another grade. So there's a whole plethora of things that people support some change, and government, and it's a disconnect between what the people want and what they're getting from.
And I agree with Lynn. I just don't see. I mean, on Friday we got the numbers that the economy only grew at 1.6%. Now, growth is better than shrinking, but that's about half of what the economy needs to do to create jobs. I don't see this mood turning around between now and November. Do you?
No, I don't. And the Wisconsin one, I don't see turning around certainly by then because it's systemic issues.
Okay, still ahead on Sunday Insight. Fighting the negative by going positive. And coming up next, speeding up the spending on the half-assed train. Who supports it and who opposes it and why?